name is Lance Gunderson. I'm the Director of Soil Health at Ward Laboratories in Kearney, Nebraska. The focus of my talk today was to introduce and discuss different soil health tests that are now becoming commercially available and have been for a while. Most importantly, tied to how do farmers use this information when we start talking about soil health. We hear a lot about nutrient reduction and diversity and organic carbon and microbes. These are things that conventional soil tests usually don't pay too much attention to. So the test I'm referring to mostly is the Haney test, developed by Dr. Rick Haney and his colleagues in Temple, Texas. And wanted to kind of introduce what that test is and some of the things that we go through and things that we measure on that test. So I wanted people to walk away with a general understanding of how the test works. But most importantly, what do we do with these numbers? Focused a lot on nitrogen management as one of the biggest players. You know, farmers are challenged every day. I always say that I don't ever envy producers because they have to be agronomists and soil scientists and economists, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the biggest challenges is that we've been taught that farmers have to do certain things in order to feed the world. And there's a common misconception out there that yield is what we dictate and measure success. And it's important to yield, but it has to be sustainable and economically profitable. If we can't produce, if we can produce 300 bushel corn, but we lose money every time we do it, we're not going to have anybody left to produce corn. And so, the struggle between this is that we have to find a way to not shoot for the moon every time, but shoot for the average, but do so sustainably. And when I say sustainable, I mean from an economic standpoint. Sustain yourself economically as a producer. And a lot of the focus on these soil health practices and in some of the testing I talked about is to try to help producers understand as you build the soil system to make it more resilient to drought or to disease or to weeds and pests, that we can eliminate in a lot of cases or reduce in other cases some of the input costs that basically force you to strive for such high yields. So I think, as we move forward, if we look at the amount of food that's wasted and things like that, that the goal shouldn't be how can we make everybody produce 300 bushel corn or 100 bushel wheat. It's how can we do that and sustain the resource, build the resource more importantly, and make sure that we can continue to do that for years to come. So what I always tell people is that if you farm conventionally, meaning that your farm is whether that's till or no-till, but your farm is driven by monocultures and high inputs, conventional soil tests are a wonderful tool. Some of these new tests are not to necessarily discredit what we've been doing, but as we transition into more of a rejuvenative ag system or a soil health system, the new tools become more and more valuable. So initially when we start off, it's important to run both tests side by side. And I think what you're going to see, beyond just learning about how the new test looks compared to something you're more familiar with, as you move forward, you're going to find that some of these new tools like the Haney test become more and more valuable to your operation as you progress down the road for soil health.